Hello there, today's video is for all the writers out there. This is a little discussion about my favourite writing books. I love reading about writing. It's the perfect procrastination. I love watching author interviews or reading author interviews or ultimately reading memoirs about writing, things like that. So I've got a little collection of books here that I thought were worth a mention. The first one is more of an activity book, so it's quite different to the others I'm going to be talking about, and that is The Writer's Book of Days by Judy Reeves. This I actually found out about in my writing class. The teacher always had it on the desk in front of her. If she was ever struggling for an activity to give us to do at home, she would just flick through and find the page in this. It's got every day of the year, and it gives you a little writing activity or a little sentence to write a piece on every day. I did it for a year and found it really fantastic. Obviously, after you've done it once for a year, you go back and it's the same things, but it's interesting, I suppose, how your perception of it changes or what different pieces you can get out of it. It would be quite a good way to find out your writing styles changing. I haven't used it for a very long time, I have to say. It's sadly been put away in a box and I haven't looked at it, but getting it out for this video has sort of inspired me that I want to start using it again. A little example of the activities would be, it's also got double page spreads with sort of advice on it, or there'll be an author interview or something in between, and then at the bottom of that there'll be a little, so this is March 6th, what can be seen through the fog is the prompt, or March 10th is on the eve of the funeral. So it'll give you like a first sentence or something like that, or a word, just something to inspire a little piece of writing. And it's quite an interesting and fun activity, and it's a good way to get into your writing if you're feeling a bit blocked when you sit down to write. It's a good way to sort of prompt yourself into getting ideas, because they do say, you know, once you start writing and you go through that physical process, it opens up the passages, which is very true. I think it's good just to start writing. Then I haven't actually finished this, so I feel like a bit of a cheat, but I'm going to include it anyway. It's Francine Prose, Reading Like a Writer, a guide for people who love books and for those who want to write them. This is quite heavy, but it is interesting. It basically looks at how you can analyse books as you're reading them to get the best sort of writing experience out of those books, which is always interesting. However, it gets quite heavy. It uses sort of examples from books, none of which I had heard of, but it uses examples from books and sort of analyses them, how you should analyse the texts that you're reading. To a certain extent, I think reading is separate from writing for me. I read because I enjoy reading, and obviously every book I read is good experience for my writing, but I wouldn't necessarily want to analyse them because I think that kind of takes the joy out of it. But this is still an interesting read. I got about halfway through and I would at some point like to pick it back up again, but there's that one. Then I've got Stephen King's On Writing, a memoir of the craft. This is probably one of the most famous writing memoirs. I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this. It does the rounds. But for me, it's a funny one. It's sort of in two parts. You get the beginning that's like it's sort of a memoir of Stephen's life. It's sort of a memoir of how he got into writing, which does go on for quite a long time. Just trying to find where the split is. I'm not going to be able to find it now because I'm looking for it. So it goes on for 118 pages as sort of this memoir bit, and then you get to the page that says toolbox, and that's where he goes into the more technical toolbox of what you will need to be a writer. The first time I read this, I was very new to writing. I was very emotional about writing, and I didn't think that the toolbox thing was valid for me. I felt very much like I don't need a toolbox to write, I just need to have this passion. I reread this last year and actually it was much more valid for me, because you do get to the point with writing where you realise that there are certain things you need to be able to do, or at least know about. So I found it much more interesting on the second read. It's much more, I think the problem with the first time was that I was enjoying the memoir and the experience of him writing and becoming a writer and talking about when he started selling stories and things like that. And it came a bit of a disappointment when he started talking about the technicalities of writing and the toolbox that you would need. And there's a few activities in here as well which are quite interesting. I don't actually like Stephen King's writing either, so I think that had an issue for me. Although that said, I read The Green Mile, was my last Stephen King, and I absolutely adored it, so I can't really say I don't like his writing anymore. But yeah, it's definitely one of the most well-known ones, and everybody seems to say this is their favourite, so I'm probably not the best to go on from this. It wasn't what I was looking for in a writing memoir, but it's worthwhile read, and it definitely gives you some handy tips and hints. Then I've got Writing Down the Bones, Freeing the Writer Within by Natalie Goldberg. Again, I didn't love this. It's more essay book on writing. I think I would like to reread this because I think the way I read it, I wasn't strictly concentrating as much as I should have been, etc. It's sort of a look at writing from a spiritual point of view almost. It's sort of, yeah, Natalie Goldberg's almost like a spiritual sort of guru, and she's talking about writing and how you can use your writing in that sense. It's interesting, and I hear this referenced an awful lot. For me, it was a bit of a disappointment, but I think I went into it expecting something different, and obviously I read it quite consecutively. Like, I didn't sit down and read it straight out, but I read it quite consecutively, and I think it would be better done just picking it up here and there, opening it up and reading the first essay you come to, sort of thing. So I'm definitely going to revisit that, and I think it is worth recommending. Then I've got my two favourites. Zen in the Art of Writing by Ray Bradbury. Again, this is an essay collection, and it's a load of Ray Bradbury's essays, a lot of which can actually be found in the backs of his books and things like that. But it's excellent to have them all in an edition like this. I have to say, the cover is shocking. It's very almost 90s, just horrible, but this is the only cover you can get on it. But don't worry about that, because it's fantastic inside. Ray Bradbury is a very inspiring figure for me. He's so vibrant and full of life, and he took so much joy out of his writing, and I think the good thing about this book is that it's very much about having fun when you're writing and just enjoying the process. And I pick this up all the time when I'm feeling a bit low, and it's just fantastic. It's a real pick-me-up, and it really reminds you why you're writing in the first place, and the fact that it really is just to have fun, and just have fun with it and explore things, and it's fantastic. And Ray Bradbury's sort of style was that he wrote a lot and he chucked out a lot. I think his way of putting it is that he chucks out a lot of shit and some of it's got to stick, and it's so true. It's so true. Then I've got my favourite, Anne Lamott's Bird by Bird. I've had a few mixed things about this. Most people don't seem to get on with Anne Lamott as much as I do. However, I have now read 3 Anne Lamott books, and I adored all of them. Anne Lamott is an American writer. She's never made a huge amount of money off of her fiction. It's never been bestsellers or anything like that. And I have to say, I've never read her fiction, but her memoirs are fantastic. She's got this one. She did her first. It's a novelised version of her father's battle with cancer, Hard Laughter. Her first novel, but I would say it's quite memoirist. So I loved that one, and I also loved First Instructions, her memoir about her first year with her son. They're just fantastic. She's very funny, she's very perceptive. In this, it's completely just about her experience with writing fiction and getting fiction published, and she very much, I mean, she teaches writing classes, and she very much emphasises in this the point that people go into writing, and she sees people coming into her writing classes and all they want is to be published, and she really emphasises the fact that it's not all about being published, because actually once you're published it's almost an anticlimax, and you realise that the work continues and no grand thing happens, and it's just a day-by-day slog, hence Bird by Bird. But it's fantastic. I just loved this. It was hilarious, it was heart-wrenching, and it was real. I really related to her experiences more than I did the other guys, and I can't recommend this enough. If you've not read this and you're a writer, you probably should. You really should. You really should. So that's all the writing books I wanted to talk about today. Obviously there are so many more. I've got a lot of technical writing books, but I wanted to talk about the ones that sort of emotionally resonate with me more. I do enjoy, more than a sort of workbook, I enjoy a memoir or something that I can relate to, because it just makes me feel less alone. And also it's really fun to read about people who are going through the same things. So I hope some of you enjoy those. Please let me know below if you've got any recommendations for writing memoirs or books. I always love to find more. Bye!